Convoy, welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar dedicated to alchemy. The alchemy, so a little part of the alchemy of the living forces. I'm very happy that I see many people and faces I know, and even more so, I see others I don't know yet. So for those who don't know me, my name is Gura Londo, and my focus is mainly in alchemy since many years in Damanhur. And tonight I would like to speak to you because in Italy it's evening. I would like to speak about the alchemy of the living forces. So, se mi sentite qui in inglese, siete nello sbagliato canale. So, per favore, scegliete italiano sotto. So, Gura says we're speaking about alchemy, about this human cycle, of this new era of Aquarius, where we say more people, more beings, more humans have the possibility to reawaken. To awaken what? Your own soul. And for soul, we understand consciousness, our essence, our divine essence. So we start from the premises that every human being contains this conscious principle, which is consciousness, and our capacity. And we have to take up an active role in this reawakening process, an active role to bring us where to. The goal of alchemy is not only being well and get better or better yourself, but the goal is the the last goal of alchemy or the highest goal of alchemy is to create a new being, being more complete, let's say, a human who is able to choose and is able to give an evolutionary direction to its own existence, to transform yourself, and to interact with everything around on a new level. The alchemy of the living forces is an alchemy, and the alchemy in general, very articulated because alchemy is a very wide field. So in Damanhur, we use a lot of different techniques and techniques and rituals to do this kind of work. So people are asking how to listen in English. You have to. Se mi sentite qui in italiano, sbagliato, questo è il canale inglese. So for those who hear me here in English, you're right in the right channel. Perfect. But just Gora was asking me to explain that in the Italian channel as well, because people are asking how to hear to the language they want to hear to listen to. So this is the English channel. If there are any technical problems, just write it in the chat. Back to alchemy. Alchemy is a very wide, vast field which is applying knowledge which touch actually every aspect of the existence, whether inside of us or also outside of us. So whether in the microcosmos, which are us, our body, our alchemical laboratory, or in the macrocosmos, which is the universe. The alchemy of the living forces is the very precise sector um, of it, a specific field of alchemy, which is dedicated to all the forces which are generated by living beings. So on this planet, not only us, and we hear the plant, there are the animals, the alchemy of the living forces is using forces and energies generated by living beings. Tonight, as in Italy's evening, we speak about these forces which humans generate and how to use them to start this process to have this more conscious. We have to understand that we are divine consciousness, but we're all like animals, like we are uh, in this meaning of we have a physicality, we live in these kind of forms where these two forms meet and they get together in matter. Everyone is a living laboratory. In alchemy, we consider our body our first laboratory. So we consider it as a temple hosting this consciousness, this divine essence, in which we have to learn to know, to get to know too. And its forces and its energies, we have to learn to guide them. To do what? To create creatively our own transformation. Inside of us, there is an entire ecosystem, and we perceive, we do that through emotions, archetypical energies, which are the elements which we contain: water, air, fire, earth, our masculine and feminine parts, memories, desires, dreams. All these energies move constantly inside of us. And what do they do? Moving, and while they're growing, they encounter. Sometimes they clash, they unify, and sometimes they also divide. They are dissolving. So they're producing other substances. So through these movements, these encounters, which are determining the state in which we live. It's not only our states of consciousness, but it really determines our well-being. They are determining our how we feel, whether we feel good with ourselves or not. So the principle we are referring in alchemy is that everything can be transformed, whether it's forces which create They're creative forces or destructive forces inside of us. Whatever it is, whether we're forces which limiting us or expanding, we can transform everything. But to do so, we have to understand and know ourselves better, know the filters which deform our perception, and not only of the reality, but from ourselves. We have to understand more how we work. Let's say from a more mechanical point of view, this Gura, we have to produce substances which are new and not to repeat the same patterns, metal patterns, or the same belief systems. So to produce substances and states of consciousness which are new. Therefore, we have to use our body in all its part, not only in the physical part, biological one, but also the emotional, energetical part, and also the subtle bodies to do this work. And tonight, I would like to invite you because I would like to introduce you to a practice, which is a practice, she says, very, very simple, apparently, but very difficult to apply, but which where you don't need particular knowledge, therefore. And it's what we call the practice of self observation. What does this mean? She says, to start to observe yourself. We have the need to understand more from ourselves, not only from our best parts which we express, but also to become more conscious about the all the other parts and also the parts which consider negative, the ones which are limiting our expression. And not fight against them. So all these parts which are judging and the judging and this judging of ourselves, she says, we have to start to observe them. Very simply observe them and all the emotions which are in our body start in our body and then manifest outside of us more or less through our actions or reactions. We don't have to deprive them nor identify with them. So the self observation is an action, is an act, let's say that, which we can do for ourselves to start to transform, to start to acquire a higher awareness of ourselves. It's not simple to be neutral of what we are. Often we don't accept what we see, huh? And especially when, well, when we look at our best parts, we like it and we identify with them quite easily. But when we see parts which are darker inside of us, these parts which we don't like so much, it's not that easy to observe them in a neutral state and to observe without judgment of what we see. So that's the real self-observation. Why? Because the true, and I really would like to underline this term, the true self-observation is a self-observation which is not done from parts of us which are connected to the aspect of of the material part, but it's an observation which is done by our consciousness, by our awareness, because we detach from ourselves with our attention, yeah? With our awareness, we bring outside of us this observer, let's call it like this. So we can imagine that it's like outside of us, and it starts to observe what we think, what we feel, how we act. If it's a neutral observation, which is not feeding what it's seeing and not depriving what it's seeing, it's a true observation done by a higher self, a higher me, yeah, and not from this part of us, not from my egocentric part, not from my me, my ego identified with the material part, but with higher self, so the observer, so this thing observing us has a real observation when it maintains a neutral state. Okay, so I'm going to say this, Gura, to put ourselves in the condition to be able to do these exercises, this self-observation will reveal over time that the majority of what we live, what we feel, what our thoughts, it's not us, but they are reflexes, they are mechanisms, conditionings which react. Conditioned by what? Says Gura. Can be conditioned by of what we call the conditioning, this aspect which we have and which formed us in our growth here in the form, in this existence, which is education, which we received from our parents, our teachers, the environment where we grew up. So all this system of belief system given by the environment and the education we received. And the conditionings are also memories, memories which we bring from other existences. So parts which coexist inside of us, but are fruit of existences which were made in different times. So all these parts inside of ourselves bring us, if you're not aware of them, they bring us to react, to react mechanically. It's very important to understand that. And what does it do? As a reflex, it brings us to live life not as creators, but like to take it in, to be passive. Huh? Gura was reading the messages in the chat. I invite you to raise your hands and share your observations with everyone, because then I also can translate it into Italian in this case. So also feel free for questions, because it's hard to speak and read at the same time, she says, and it's even harder to translate than to do so. So, but so Gura is encouraging you to raise your hands and just speak and share whatever you want to share with the others considerations. By the way, those who listen English, is the audio fine and can you hear me well? Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Guru goes on and saying, so the first phase we have to go through is where we become more conscious about our negative part, more aware of it. So to work on all these parts of criticism, jealousy, judgment, all with these low frequencies which are limiting our expensive parts, our bright parts, our shiny parts, which are part of our real essence. Often, is it, how can we say that? We're not that aware of it, but it's like it really reflexes which we're conditioned by. Yeah, it's true that we feel it in our body, but it's still automatism, which we need to not, uh, which we need to survive in the physical world, but in the meaning of to protect in as a protective way to defend ourselves. But they don't help us to exist. So here I would like to make a difference between what does it mean to survive and survival more on the physical material plane connected to, and to exist in the meaning of existing, going in the direction of your own soul, find your own mission, find what difference you can make in the world, meaning to find our talents, our best expressions we can have, to go in the direction where our consciousness is guiding us to. So it's very important to understand this difference between living and survival and existing. It's like the two manifestations of our, it's the emotions connected to our two natures. And so the more animal nature and the more divine nature. So all this mechanical part, which makes us survive, which also makes us then judge, which is then complaining, which is reacting. We do this because we protect parts of ourselves which have been useful for millions of years, and they saved us in a lot of um, moments of life. But they are not so useful anymore in this epoch where we have the spiritual uh, challenge to make our divine essence come up and make it emerge. So to exist, not only to live, but to manifest our essence, we have to, well, we have to is a big word. If we want, if we choose to do so, right? We have to give more attention to all these parts which are creative, says Gura, to all these parts which are a part of this or spiritual soul dimension of ourselves, which are, what are these? These profound emotions, these feelings, well, which is loving, which is creating, using fantasy, playing, being happy, transform, expand. So these parts are parts which are in no way connected to this defensive mechanism. There's no protection needed. Yeah. They are connected to the desire to manifest and to manifest themselves. So all these negative emotions and these judgments, which are limiting, are becoming today a distortion of the perception of ourselves and of the world and of reality. So, Guna says, therefore, we, women and men, we continue to change and to transform as our body does, our cells do automatically, no? Following precise cycles, because our cells are renovating themselves and we ourselves are transforming to what we are living, what we are feeling, the experiences we make, and so on. The fact is that we don't see, we don't observe that all that is happening. Like it's happening now inside of us. In an alchemy, we think, Escura, that emotion, thoughts can be chosen, and you can choose them consciously. So in alchemy, look or we search to create inside of us these states of consciousness which are necessary to go and balance and to transform all the parts which are limiting. But why our biological machine, our body, which is a super complex machine, huh? And we're not using it all with its potential because we don't know it. Huh? We're using only this Gura in its mm, more mechanical way. But this machine we have, this vehicle, call it this better expression, has so much power, and we're not nourishing this other part of us, of this being, because this essence, this divine spark we contain is not nourished sufficiently. So what we don't see is governing us. What we manage to observe will transform us. The observation is an act, an action which in alchemy we can consider alchemical fire. A fire which is start to cook and transform a substance like uh, a substance, the judgment or the negative emotions in something more elevated, in something more refined. So therefore, all these emotions which we have, but we constantly express towards something, being, person, something which is outside of us, it's all instruments. Let's define it a bit archaic, mm, connected to the animal, to the animal part, connected to survival. Huh? If they're not observed, they govern our life. They're guiding it. So she says the freedom which is born from the transformation of this limiting part and this expansion of it is not to eliminate them, but to transform them. It's not to be direct and be guided by them, but to start out being us to guide them and to where we want to go. So we can say we start efficiently to do this process when we start to give more attention to our essence and its characteristics, divine characteristics. So the emotions which are more creative, brighter, and positive. And when we don't give attention to it, and we don't give attention to these negative ones, to all this limited stuff. Guru says, first I said they're filters, like all our conditionings are filters. So our perception of reality and of the world is always subjective. Here in the world of matter, we cannot have no objective perception of reality. So try to think of it, chisel words, that we never see the world and reality, but we only see our reactions to the world. It's like lenses which filter what in reality is in something which is not. Because every time when we or an event, something is happening outside of us, we in reality, we don't live it, but we interpret it through the lenses, the emotions we have in this very moment, and which take like the main guiding of it. So do a neutral observation is not that simple. Hmm? And what I want to transmit to you that the negative emotions are not natural. They're fabricated, made by the conditionings. The negative emotions are not part of the true nature of humankind. Have been created of our inner sleep. Mm. The fact that the majority of the time we're not even conscious of having them. So they are part of this system which help us to defend ourselves constantly and to affirm who we are, but not in our essence, but who we are in our conditions received, in the total identification of the role we have or the characteristics we think we have, or so this mechanism of defending is something very profound, and that's why I'm underlining it so much. Because we, the majority of time, we don't realize that. But when we communicate when the others, when we bring ourselves to the others, when we apparently think and we think that we exchange with the others, we in reality want to that the others that the others react as we want them to react. It's not that we really want to see how the others are for real and embrace that how they are, no matter how they are. No, we want that the others are that. like that as we expect them to be. That's the filter of the conditioning. Mm. And the same thing we do towards ourselves. We have, Buddha says, we we think that we know ourselves and we think that we know who we are and we have determined characteristics and so on. But what we know of ourselves in reality is such a little part. It's such a little part we experimented till today, and which quite likely is something which we are used to also. And we went with that, huh? So what we manifest is mainly a system of self-protection to maintain what we are, who we are, and that's not transforming. That doesn't make us evolve. It maintains us in a static state, in stagnation. So a first exercise which can be useful to do is to start to self-observe ourselves. Because when you move your attention outside of you, observing yourself, the mechanism of reaction is turning more difficult. Why? Because you have a certain distance of yourself and what you are living internally, and this distance uh, like makes the automatism lose force, which usually makes you react. Huh? And when the automatism is losing its power, we leave space to our real essence to come out a bit more. And that's where the place where all the transformations happen, because the transformations happen through the awareness. So to make more aware ourselves of what is happening inside of ourselves. When we start to see with more awareness who we are in all the parts, beautiful and what we find positive and what negative, like beauty and then not beautiful stuff. In this moment, the awareness starts to transform. I will give you examples because we usually, when we, well, at least to me, it happens. I don't know what's with you, but let's see. But uh, try to feel what I'm, or see what I'm saying. When I'm in rage, when I'm feeling angry, and Buddha, who has this tendency of perfection, I don't want to get angry, huh? But it happens to me. Huh? Rage or anger, if it's not chosen consciously, because it can be useful if it's chosen consciously, rage or anger or whatever it is. It can be, if you direct it, it can be useful energy if you direct it. So, for example, rage can be a strong energy directed with intention toward a transformation. The fear can be is a feeling which is limiting, and it can be, if it's seen, if it's aware, it can clear parts of ourselves. So if we manage to self-observe neutrally our fears or our fear, it bring us to a more profound comprehension and makes it clearer why we feel this certain fear. Where does it come from? Where is the source of it? So every emotion, every negative emotion is containing part which is creative, which can bring us somewhere else. We have to focalize on this part, on what we can extract chemically from the fear, from aggressivity, from rage. So this pearl inside, which can be useful for a comprehension, which is more profound of ourselves. And the freedom starts when we start to see our prison, our self-made prison. So the negative emotions, the judgment, these limiting parts are the prison which we created, first of all, in our minds. When we start to see them, we understand also that we are in a prison, and there we start to feed a sense of freedom. Vaso, please.
Yes, thank you, Gura. I just the word sadness, the element of sadness. I understand anger and all the other things, but sadness is slightly more complex because it's an internalization. It doesn't have this build-up of energy. So I'm just interested how that functions within the same subject as we're talking.
So Buddha says the attention has not to go on the emotion. You can feel whatever you feel, also negative, also sadness can be limiting. But what is transforming, says Buddha, is the act of observing, the observing it, what's happening here from a neutral point. You, when you said you have to, well, have to is a big word, huh? But it's important, useful to live the sadness and with, but without judgment. Not to taste it without judgment. You live it, but this non-judgment, this non-judging, or this non, depressing it, depriving it, or negate, negate it, or fuel it, that will transform your sadness in something else. Remember, the observer is transforming the reality which is observed. And the point of view and the point of view of the observer who is outside of you is point of observation which can give life over time through these practices to a higher self, nourished and given by your self awareness. Because at the end, it's all with you there, right? When you observe, you transform. And this word, transformation, transforming, transform, is maintaining, it keeps us staying alive. Life is movement, it's not stagnation. If you think and reflect of all of these emotions, these limiting, these heavy emotions are keeping us back, they're holding us back, huh? The manifesting to life, huh? In reality, in our life, our life is very rich of Well, okay. Now, if our life is very rich of negative emotions, then we are not existing in our real nature. No, in this case, we keep ourselves sleeping for our true way of being. We enter in the state of not remembering, kind of asleep, and we don't recognize who we are for real anymore. The Buddha says, remember these elements, self-observation, neutral self-observation, without judgment. When you not manage to do a neutral self-observation, it means that you should be aware, observing yourself, that in this very moment, instead of very simply recognize what you are going through, an emotion or a sadness, that you're having currently a sadness inside of you, what you do, you observe the sadness and you tell yourself, but why am I sad? That's already a judgment, guys. Or I'm sad because I'm sad because I'm not able to transform my emotions. That's a judgment. I'm sad. Full stop. Observe my sadness. Full stop. I live it. Full stop. That will transform. Obviously, Buddha says, in alchemy, we'll use a lot of different systems. So tonight, or this meeting, would like to focalize on this practice because it's crucial of this first state of transformation, which is connected to the nigredo. It, the word says it's the first phase of transformation, of the inner transformation. Nigredo means the black. It's a state in alchemy. This the dark parts, this limiting part in ourselves. And it's not simple, this practice, because it requests a state of presence. What does this mean? Lighting this outside telecamera, this camera, and registering what we're doing while we're living, what we are living. We are forgetting the majority of the times because we are very rarely present to ourselves because being present means living what is there, whatever it is, in a state of presence, being here and now, meaning that you have a neutral approach. Neutral in this case means if we don't formulate immediately while we're living or going through something, a judgment, an interpretation, or and we don't immediately put it into a box or we give an opinion upon it, huh? Or we maintain a space in this present moment. It's a space of neutrality. Let's say an emptiness. It's an emptiness, an absence of thought, which then gives the possibility to explore more possible ways, huh? More possible interpretations, not only the one which comes reactively, automatically from our conditioned part. So this means, and that's another very important or useful thing to do, is when we self-observe ourselves and we see in ourselves limiting parts which would bring us to express only reactively and judgment. We don't express it. We literally don't express it. That's the next step of the exercise. If you think that another person is aggressive, bad educated, well, you just throw judgment on them as bad intention, whatever you want, huh? You don't express it. You hold this reaction inside of me, like this urge of wanting saying that, huh? Whatever, how it is, huh? In extremely in like attacking this person physically, you will maintain yourself from doing that. You don't express it. You just don't. And you observe what is happening inside of you, keeping it in, keeping the reaction in. That's super difficult to do so. Mumbling. And I'm inviting you to do the experience because it's not easy. Embrace and accept without judgment all these negative parts. When I'm saying using the words negative, then I'm referring to this which are limiting us. It's not easy because we have an idea which is really wrong about ourselves. And it's a really distorted expression or perception of ourselves. But now, I would like to invite you, she says, to put your questions here and take the opportunity to read what you wrote in the chat. There are surely interesting things inside. Let's see. Let's take the chat. What in the Oriental traditions? So she went so fast that I had to. So Salvio said what the Oriental traditions teach, specifically the esoteric school, was from Gurdjieff, che si chiama, which is called mindfulness, and this is always taught in esoteric school, especially Gurdjieff was forming this external testimony and percussions which you can have in our environment, and it's in little words to remind you of yourself or remember yourself. Buddha says, well, Gurdjieff has been one of the major uh, parts who taught, described, and used this technique a lot. And it's a technique where a lot, not only Gurdjieff, are considering it, um, that it comes from a very, very ancient esoteric tradition. And therefore, you will understand it's very simple because we don't have any specific knowledge, therefore, which is needed, right? It's difficult because it means that you have to be present to yourself because, and this is happening very rarely or almost never. The capacity of remembering to light up this camera, this observer. But what I says, I would like to invite you to do an experience with us. Because in alchemy, we do is not so much talk about theory, a little yes, but much more to live. Live with our body, with our energy, with our states of consciousness. So to do, make experience practically. To really give inputs and information to the, give new informations to the body through which we can, which with which our body can learn how to act differently in a different way, not only to our mind, but to all our parts. So, she says, I invite you to find a comfortable position, and I ask Natalie to put the music, the ones we've chosen before, and I invite you to have a comfortable position, which would be ideally with an upright spine, straight back. Close your eyes, don't cross over your arms or legs. And be aware or breathing and try to relax. Observe and continue to breathe and perceive your body. Bring your attention to breathing and imagine to enter in yourself, to enter in a sacred place, your temples, your laboratory, your chemical laboratory. In this space where the transformations happen, observe, understand, and transform what is inside of you. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your good open mouth. And from this center, which is your sacred place, Observe the emotions or the emotion which is more present in you in this very moment. Observe what the emotion is which comes back so often. Observe in which situation it's activated or it activates. Take a deep breath, conscious about it, and continue to observe how this emotion, which is presenting itself in this period in your life, is reacting in your body when it's showing up. And what are the thoughts which come along? Breathe deeply and observe. Let it come up. Images, sensations. And now look at these emotions as if would be like a rough metal, something which needs to be refined as a living substance. And try to ask yourself what this emotion likes to show you, what it tries to show you. Which profound need is behind it and wants to be expressed. And try to observe now what would happen if instead of depriving it, pushing it down, or feeding it, what would happen if you embrace it? If you welcome this emotion without judging it, what would happen? Try to breathe and observe what comes up. Without any hurry. And now continue consciously being aware of your breathing. Our breath is our energy, our vital energy, which connects with the energies of the universe, with the creative energy of the universe. And imagine now to take this emotion and put it in the center of your alchemical laboratory, which is your body. And try to perceive what, which of the four elements, fire, air, water, or earth, could help best to transform it and feel which element, which of of these archetypical energies can refine this emotion, which turned more, you're more aware now of it by observing it, and use your breath by find the element which can help to this transmutation. And imagine this element unified with the emotion what you observe, and now it turns into a new center of power and emotion, which is more refined. And bring slowly your attention back to your physical body, and very gentle and slowly move your finger, your feet, your shoulders, and take a couple of deep breaths. And then, when you're ready, you reopen your eyes. And I take you to take a moment for you to write down what was the emotion you observed, what is the message it brought, and what's the element, this useful element you found helpful for its transformation. The self observation is an action, a chemical act which brings light, awareness to places, shadow places in us, and is transforming the heaviness into presence. So therefore, refining our emotions, our negative emotions, doesn't mean to eliminate them, doesn't mean to deprive them, not even to feed them, but to make them, turn them into evolutionary instruments. And you manage to do that only if you're able to self observe you and to become aware of it. And what's transforming is the constant application, this practicing constant in alchemy, the direction. You have to choose it every day. You have to practice every day. So to do the exercises to give life uh, and give power to our transformation. So our constant application is transforming. So you should find the motivation to create this push, this force, which is supporting this daily practice. Nothing exists outside of us. Everything is happening before in our mind. And it's our thoughts and our beliefs and the images we have of ourselves and of the world, which are modeling what we see. So we have to expand of everything. And so if you have any consideration, reflection, feedback of the exercise, we have some minutes still of sharing. I just said to Guru to read in the chat because Savi was asking whether there is the recording of it, and in Damanhur, which Pathways of Alchemy is offering. So Damanhur, we have a school of alchemy. It's a pathway. It's a process. It's a school organized now on 3 levels. But I invite you on the 18th of January. We will have another webinar, a little longer, where we open different topics of alchemy, connect to different practices, to different experiences, and there we will speak more in depth about the school, the pathway, the things we do, and all the topics we're touching, and all the techniques and the rituals we do. Because our school is very much based on the process of self-awareness and but also united with knowledge and uh, united or has side a big ritual part, so the individual rituality, which is used to transform forces, energies inside of you. So I invite you to for January. I'm very happy that you have been here today with us. And observe yourself. You will find a lot of different things, but you will start to be able to transform you more and more. So thank you very much, Iskura. Thanking me for the translation. I hope you could follow well. It was a big pleasure being able to do so. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing one of the other webinars, or maybe then even in the school. From my little comment, it's so cool. Enjoy. Good boy.